Welcome to our live session tonight. I wanted to talk about just a couple of things very quickly. This is not the episode for the week, but just a kind of a quick update on two things. Number one, tomorrow we have teamed up with B&H Photo and Zoom, who makes a great number of recorders, awesome recorders, audio recorders for sound and video production. And they are offering an exclusive pricing deal on the Zoom H1n. So I just wanted to let you know about that. Now, why am I telling you this? And why are we doing this? The H1n, or the H1, actually the original one from years and years ago, was my very first recorder. And I learned a ton with that thing. Little stereo recorder, two built-in microphones, but importantly, it also has a 3.5 millimeter microphone input, which I used a whole lot, and connected a lavalier microphone to that, and used it as a in lieu of a wireless microphone system. So it's kind of a poor person's wireless mic system. And so anyway, that's the reason I wanted to talk about this is and offer this, is that for those that are starting, it is an amazing way to get started in learning about how to record really good audio. And the interesting thing is that I still have that in my kit. I have the original H1 still to this day, and I still use it every once in a while for recording ambiances and sound effects. So it's an interesting piece of kit. So it's selling for $84.99 tomorrow and Tuesday only on B&H, and the way to find that special link that gives you that special pricing, and again, this is only a special deal that Zoom and B&H have made with us in our particular community here, is to head over to learnlightandsound.com, and we'll have that link posted up tomorrow morning. So if you're interested in that, and that kind of fits where you're at in your journey on learning how to make good audio, you can get that. Secondly, I want to talk about a new product that was announced just today. This is a consumer wireless microphone system that kind of breaks some new ground. It's pretty interesting. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about that. I'm going to show you here. I am using what is called the Saramonic Blink 500 wireless microphone system. You're hearing it right now. It's going into my Panasonic GH5S, which we're live streaming with. And I'm using the included lavalier microphone. What's interesting is that this is a dual channel system. So you get two different transmitters that will transmit to a single receiver. We will be working on the review for this. That will be coming later this week if everything goes well. Hopefully it does. But it comes with two transmitters, two lavalier microphones. I'm wearing one of them. Here's the other one. And there's a single little receiver that, very much like the Rode Wireless Go, has a little clip that makes it connect, or you can connect it in the shoe of your camera. And then that just feeds right into the camera with a little cable. Or it can also work with mobile phones. They have different versions. They have a Lightning version for iOS devices, so you can get a receiver, a dual channel receiver that goes directly into your iPhone, or a USB-C version that goes directly into your Android phone if you've got a USB-C input on your Android phone. So really interesting wireless system. Let's show you a little bit about it here. Let's switch over to my screen here. Here we go. Okay, so Saramonic's website here. Again, the system's called Blink 500. You can see here it connects directly to your phone. I believe they have both an Apple Lightning, as I mentioned, and a USB-C version. And they have a version that works with cameras. It has a TRS and a TRRS output. So you can go into phones, you can go into tablets, you can go into computers, you can go into cameras, so on and so forth. They have both, as I mentioned before, they have a dual channel and single channel versions. And the versions that work with phones, I believe, are also dual channel. So that's pretty cool as well. So again, this is going to be aimed more at vloggers and people that are creating online videos, not necessarily professionals, but here's another interesting thing about it. If we look at the pricing over at B&H, let me just show you the kit I'm using. This is the dual channel kit with a TRS and TRRS output, $249 for two transmitters, one receiver, two lavalier microphones, and the cables to connect the receiver to your camera. So they're breaking ground here in terms of price. The question is, how well does it hold up? We're not going to, I'll be honest, at this price, I'm not necessarily going to expect the most amazing performance in terms of self-noise, in terms of distance when we go out and do our distance tests here and do the really brutal ones up on top of the garage like we typically do. I think you're going to need to maintain line of sight pretty much to keep this going. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, it has a built-in microphone on the transmitter itself, so if you don't want to use a lavalier microphone, you can just clip this. It has a clip on it. You can just clip that to the person's clothing and use it that way, just like the Rode Wireless Go. So there are a variety of options there. And it's charged and can be powered via USB-C. Made out of pure plastic. There's no external antennas, so it has to be plastic, the casing. It has very simple controls. There's a power button, and in this case, there's an up and down button to change the input level for the external microphone or the internal microphone. And I think you hold both of them at the same time to pair it, and pairing takes just a second. So this is a 2.4 gigahertz system, so it's using the same radio frequency range as Wi-Fi. 2.4 gigahertz, which means it's legal to use it in all countries across the world, which also makes it simpler. My experience has been that these kind of systems don't necessarily have the best range, but we will see when we do those tests. This one is said to have a 6-hour battery life, but again, we'll do our own tests on that to make sure. I've almost dropped it. That could have been a drop test there. So that's what I wanted to tell you. Actually, you can't see me right now. You're seeing my screen still. Sorry about that. Let's switch back here. So in any case, yes, this is the microphone up on top here. Let me see if you can, there you can see it right there. It's got that metal grill. 2 buttons on the side for increasing or decreasing the input level. Press and hold them at the same time to pair. USB-C input on this side. It's a little funky that the 3.5 millimeter jack for the lavalier comes off the side instead of the top. We're typically used to seeing them come off the top. Not sure how I feel about that just yet. That can make it a little bit more bulky in some respects if you're like clipping it to your belt. I don't know. Maybe it's a problem, maybe it's not, but that's a thing. So anyway, we'll be doing a review on that and hopefully have a review later this week telling you a whole lot more about it. So just wanted to quickly do that. We have a few questions here. Let's go to the questions. First of all, hello to Alejandro. It's good to see you again. RT365, thanks for joining. Philip, good to hear from you. Alejandro Reyes asks, how are the preamps on the H1? The 3.5 millimeter microphone input, I think, is actually quite decent if you're going to be using it with a lavalier microphone. So in that case, it's really going to depend pretty heavily on the microphone itself as to how much self-noise you're going to get. But with decent microphones, you can produce some pretty good quality audio with the H1 and the H1n. So hopefully that ensures. Oh, and then for the preamplifiers for the inbuilt stereo condenser cardioid microphones, they're decent. Those microphones sound a little bit mid-rangey to me, but I find them pretty effective for recording ambience and sound effects. For dialogue, they can work. Are they going to beat out a $2,000 shotgun microphone? No, they're not as tight a polar pattern, and they don't necessarily sound quite as rich, but you can make some really, really great recordings with that H1n. So again, this is just an offer for those that are interested, that are kind of getting a start and need to keep it, the cost down a little bit. But anyway, it's a good thing. So Alejandro says, my first recorder was the H4n. That one had noisy preamps. Yeah, we're not talking pro level here. We're talking, this is a consumer grade recorder, just to be fair and open about it. But I think it's a really, really fantastic tool for someone learning how to create good sound for film. Philip Flores, great. Oh, Philip was replying to Alejandro about the preamps for the H1. Yeah, I mean, they're, for the price, I think they're fair. They're good. Sridhara Yoga. Hi, Curtis. I hear loud and clear. Good audio. So you're hearing the Saramonic at this very moment, just so that you can make some assessment there, how that sounds. Awesome. A new option for dual channel mics. That is awesome. It's in the consumer space. So what's interesting to me about this, for the dual channel system or the dual channel kit, $250 US is the launch price. That's cheaper than 2 channels on the Wireless Go, which I thought was already aggressively priced. There is no screen on the receiver. It's a little bit simpler. We also reviewed the Pico mic a few weeks ago. That one has a really beautiful screen on the receiver. That was a pretty good system. It didn't have the the option for attaching an external lavalier microphone, but for what it was a pretty good system too. This one's a little simpler, doesn't have the screen, basically has a button on the receiver, a USB-C input, and I think that's it on the receiver. Yeah, that's it on the receiver, so period. That's all you get. And then on, as I mentioned before, on the transmitter, just the two buttons for up and down on the input level and holding both at the same time to pair. So in any case, all right. Let's go back to the questions. Sorry, just scanning through here, hearing loud and clear. Awesome, new option. Okay, Alejandro, will you have links for the system you're using? Yes, what I will do is I'm going to put a link underneath the video below here. That's just going to take you to Learn Light and Sound. We'll have that link up in the morning U.S. Mountain Time, so probably 8 a.m. U.S. Mountain Time. That link will go up and it will go live then. It's a link to B&H, and they'll have the special pricing. Again, that's $84.99 for the H1n. Hello to Will from Debt Free Homesteaders. Thanks for joining us. Mike Whitehouse, hello. Bangs Naughty Bits. Does the transmitter have a prominent logo? That's a great question. It depends on how you attach it. If you attach it this way with the clip showing, it's just a big clip. If you attach it this way, then it does have a prominent logo. But you do have the freedom to do it. This one's pretty bulky, so this is not like the Pico mic. It's even bigger than the Wireless Go. So clipping this on is a pretty bulky experience. That wouldn't be my preferred way to do it, but this kit does come with this lavalier microphone came with the kit, so it's a Saramonic lavalier. So I think ideally you're going to probably use the lavalier in most cases, but if you really need to make it fast, you could clip it on like this, so you're just seeing a black clip, and we'll test that and just see how that works out. But it's, as I say, it's pretty bulky, so it does solve the problem where the Rode, there's this big Rode insignia on it, and some people complained about that. But this one, not necessarily quite as prominent. Debt-free homesteaders, I'm looking for a lapel for my Rode Wireless Go. Any suggestions? Yes, well, I am hoping to try out the new Go lapel from Rode. They actually have their own lapel microphone that's made specifically for that system. So I'm hoping to try that out. My guess is that's going to be a pretty decent option there, hopefully. All right. Wireless mic with a receiver and transmitter versus a video mic. Which one to start? Well, I started with a Zoom H1. Sorry, I have some allergies tonight. I started with a Zoom H1, and that was a really great way to start. I learned a lot with that. I almost always like the sound of a boom mic over a lavalier mic, but the freedom that a lavalier mic gives you to move around and not have somebody operating a boom pole and kind of making sure it's well aimed is really nice as well. So it's a trade-off, and it really depends on what you're shooting. So if you're going to do mostly seated talking head things, I would probably go with like a video mic of some sort that you could boom above the talent. And if you're going to be doing a lot of moving around, I think a lavalier with a wireless system is probably going to be a good choice. So Big Shot Beats, I am using the lavalier that comes with the Saramonic Blink 500 system right now. So that's what you're hearing at this very moment. Slav Guns, hey Curtis, welcome to the show. Moi et Blanc-Biais, howdy Curtis, thanks for all the great tips and reviews over the years. Thanks, I'm really honored to have you here. You have a great channel, by the way. If you guys haven't seen Moi et Blanc-Biais, and I don't know if I'm saying that right, my French is not so good, but it is a fantastic channel, especially for music production and things of that nature. So keep up the good work there. 42 Pros, Isotope RX Elements does a solid job at noise floor removal. That's a great point. And it's interesting, Isotope RX Elements is, it goes on sale, and it is really cheap sometimes for what you're getting. You're getting basically industry-leading noise reduction software along with several other plugins. And I've seen it for as low as, like, I think $30 in some cases. So keep your eyes open for specials on that. That could, really good stuff. So All right, Big Shots Beats. Okay, awesome. Pixelator, New York City. Are you streaming from GH5 or Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K? I'm currently with the GH5S is what I'm streaming with right now. I actually toyed with the idea of streaming from the Blackmagic Pocket, but of course it doesn't have the flip out screen, so it's a little difficult the way I have things configured here. I basically have the camera up here on my desk, and getting behind to set up focus is tricky with the Blackmagic Pocket. And I could put an external monitor, but that takes up the HDMI port, which I need to stream to the computer, so it would require an HDMI splitter. It just got really complicated pretty quickly, but it could go a lot of different directions. I actually have a confession to make to you, my audience. I was working really hard. My friend, Basic Filmmaker, some of you may know him, I had made a pact with him and I said, don't let me buy a new camera within the next 3 months. And I almost made it, but I actually ended up pre-ordering the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K because I do have some EF glass and I wanted to put that to use, and I needed I wanted a larger sensor camera that, anyway, that's a whole different story. We'll take a look at the audio features on that just to see if it's the same as the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. Thanks to 65 Drums. He gave us a little super chat donation. Thanks for that. Thanks for your very clear and helpful reviews. Your channel is one of a kind. Thanks for that. Really appreciate that. Into which camera do you use most for your corporate video, and which light do you like to bring with you? That's a great question. I mostly use the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K for the corporate videos at this point. And then in terms of lights, it depends on the job, but if I'm doing an interview, which is probably the most common thing that I do, I will often bring the Aperture COB 120D Mark II and maybe the tungsten version of that as well, which I don't know if they even sell that anymore, which makes me a little bit sad. I like that combination because what I can do is light with the tungsten colored version and get these really nice, warm, creamy tones, skin tones, and then use the daylight version to create some sort of interest in the background, usually blue. Or I can reverse that and get a warm background if I use the tungsten version in the background and the daylight on the face of the person. So that's probably my first choice. Another one that I find myself using a whole lot, this is more of a pro level light, but the Lupo Super Panel 60 full color. That's a 1x2 LED panel. It's RGB, but it has really great color, especially when you set it to tungsten white balance. I used that on my most recent corporate shoot where we were doing a talking head, and the results were fantastic. And then I pair that with another Lupo Super Panel, which is just the bicolor. Actually, the other one might just be daylight. I don't remember if it's bicolor or daylight. I think it's, actually no, it's bicolor. And then I also have a Super Panel, that's also a 1x2, and then I use a Super Panel, the 1x1, as an accent light in the background oftentimes. So I've got, as you know, these manufacturers send me all kinds of lights, and so I'm often experimenting, but those are probably the most common kits that I bring with me. So thanks for that question there. All right. Fame Little. Hi Curtis, did you know the release date for the Mix Pre 3 version 2? Yes. They said it was shipping immediately. Maybe somebody's got stock of it, but I don't know who does. I put in a pre-order, and it looks like I put it in with a small company. They'll have them at B&H, of course, but I put my order in with a company that's out here closer to me. I'm in the Rocky Mountains here in the United States, and there's a company in Washington called DVE Store. I put my order in with them. They said it's looking like it's going to be a couple of weeks, so those should be coming here pretty quick. All right, next up from Mike Whitehouse. I purchased the Alav Easy but never got it to work with either the H1 or the Zoom H6. Any suggestions? Yes. Mike, that Alav Easy is actually made for phones. So it has what's called a TRRS 3.5 millimeter plug. So while that will fit into an H6 and an H1, it's the wrong pin configuration. So you will need an adapter that goes from TRRS to TRS to make that work with those two recorders. So you can find that over at B&H, and we'll put a link up for that a little later. Photo Joseph, it's good to hear from you. Thanks for all your new videos on the new Panasonic. You're doing some killer work with that, so keep that up. It's good to hear from you. Darren Winder, hello from Lehigh, just down the road here. It would take me about an hour and a half to get there, but Darren, welcome to the show tonight. Big Shot Beats, Mike. Yes, so Mike, yeah, same thing. We need a, oh, you know what? I forgot. I can put these on the screen. You know what? Thanks for people that are helping out in the chat here. I really appreciate Big Shot Beats. You're a saint. Thanks for you just said what I said, so. Alejandro was saying, I believe they're currently available now. The MixPre Series 2. Yeah, you can put your order in now. There's a little bit of a backlog, but you should be able to get it within a couple of weeks here, it looks like. The Rode mic system would make more sense if you could attach a lav mic to it. I'm not sure the context there. The Wireless Go, you actually can attach a lav mic to it, so I'm not sure. I apologize for I don't quite follow there. Good morning from Finland. It's 7 a.m. Wow. Well, good morning to you. Happy Labor Day for those who will be celebrating that here in the United States tomorrow. Leonardo, I am doing a documentary and I want to give an HD camera to the people I am recording so they can register on their own some images. Which low-cost camera do you recommend? I think we need some help from the audience on this one. I'm not really a big camera recommender necessarily. At the on the lower end, like a more affordable end, I don't know if you're looking for something. Are you looking for still images or video? Oh, HD camera. So I'm assuming you're meaning video. You could go with an action cam if you want that look. They're getting a lot better. The new GoPro Hero 7 has really pretty nice stabilization, and there are a lot of other options out there too. I don't necessarily keep up on that kind of stuff. On the, I don't know. Let's hear what other people have to say about that. I don't have a lot of suggestions there. Thanks to Noir Blanvier. Super chat donation. Thank you for that. Very much appreciate it. Dinesh, MixPre Cashmere preamps versus Zoom F6 F8 ends. Your thoughts on the self-noise and character of the preamps. My friend Julian Kraus did some formal testing, not of the F6 yet because that's not available, but of the F8 and the Cashmere preamps on the original MixPre, which actually those preamps are the same on the MixPre Series 2, by the way, is my understanding. We actually have an interview coming up. That's another thing, an interview coming up with Paul Isaacs from Sound Devices. That'll be later this week as well, so I'm looking forward to that. We're going to ask him kind of in-depth questions about the new MixPre 2 series. I think that the noise floor, the self-noise floor for both of those is actually quite similar. And the Zoom F6 is using the same preamps as the F8N. It is using the dual analog to digital converters, however. So the character is where I think you're going to hear the biggest difference, and that's where in my initial test with the MixPre Cashmere preamps versus the F8, I found that it's very similar, but the MixPre had a little bit more low end to it, so a little bit more warmth, if you will, to it. And I don't know which one's colored. I don't know if it's the Zoom that's lacking a little tiny bit of low end or the MixPre that's adding a little bit, but whatever it is, the MixPre sounds just the tiniest bit warmer, a little bit more low end to it. But it's so hard to tell. I mean, you have to have really good playback system to hear the difference in my case. When I put up that video a couple of years ago, a lot of the feedback from a lot of people, granted, a lot of these people are probably watching on phones and things of that nature, but the feedback was like, I can't tell a difference. So that is what it is. But that's an interesting question. So I don't know that there's a massive difference there. I don't know if I would make a decision between those based on that alone. But the new MixPre Series 2 looks like it really kind of closes a lot of the gaps between the Zoom F Series and the MixPre. So they're really pretty much neck and neck. And my personal preference is, and I own the F4, the F8N, the F8. I've used the F6. I've used the MixPre 6 and the MixPre 10T. I personally prefer the MixPre, but there are lots of people out there making great recordings with the Zoom F Series as well, and so I fully support that as well. All right. And Big Shot Beats, so the Saramonic is dual channel. Indeed it is, 2 transmitters, and the receiver receives a signal from both of these. Obviously I'm only using one right now, but yes, it is indeed. Video and audio is on point. Not bad for a little consumer wireless microphone system. Granted, we're not stressing it at all right now. I mean, I'm literally sitting 4 feet from the camera, so it's not a stress test, but I'm glad to hear it's hanging in there all right. All right, we have some friendly chatter going on here. JS13, thanks for the great channel. I'd love to see a lighting tutorial on 2-person interviews, bonus with multicam. Most of your lighting videos seem to be about lighting 1 person. That's a great point. Yes, in fact, I am trying to put together a new course and probably some videos with a friend of mine who's a DP named Levi Whitney. He's actually getting ready to go to Africa for a little bit, so we're not going to be able to do it really soon, but that's definitely on the list of things to do, so I appreciate that. Photo Joseph, any tips on eliminating the noise floor? Seems like no matter how quiet the room, by the time the dialogue is at a reasonable levels, you hear a lot of background. That depends on the system. So obviously the more pro level systems are going to be a little bit quieter in terms of noise floor, but they also have more dynamic range. So the noise floor is going to sit down lower in the overall recording. You're going to get a better signal to noise ratio. Again, it's all about signal to noise ratio. So getting the microphone close is a big thing. So people that put their Video Mic Pro on top of their camera, which I understand, it was designed to work that way. But the problem is that just doesn't give you a lot of good signal to noise. You've got to get that microphone closer. And then at that point, using higher quality preamplifiers and analog to digital converters. So as you move up the scale in terms of quality audio gear, you're going to get a little bit better. And then you also have to really control the room. I know, a lot of us are shooting at home or shooting in corporate environments and things of that nature. And anything you can do to eliminate sound in the room. For example, I have a RAID array with 4 spinning discs in it. Had to turn that off for this. I actually have the windows open, so you might be hearing a little bit of that because it's pretty hot here tonight. But anyway, there's some quick thoughts on that. Thanks for that, Joseph. Great question. Are you going to be able to get a crack at the Lumix S1H? Not with my money, I'm not. I can't quite afford that at the moment. I just bought that Pocket 6K. I thought long and hard about that. I was thinking about getting another larger cinema camera, and I had sold the Ursa Mini Pro just because it was really big and bulky and super heavy, and I just felt like I was getting great images out of the Pocket, and so it wasn't really doing it for me. But there are times when I want a slightly larger sensor, the Super 35 size sensor. I would love to work with the Lumix S1H. Maybe B&H will let me borrow one. That's maybe the answer to that. My dilemma is going to be with the F6 with the 32-bit float recording or Sound Devices Mix Pre 3. What's your opinion? Well, the Sound Devices Mix Pre 3 Series 2 also has dual analog to digital converters and 32-bit float recording, just like the Zoom F6, and it's available. They say it's shipping now. It'll probably be a couple weeks before you get it if you pre-ordered one right away. So to answer your question, you can get that on both of them. So that should not be the deciding factor at this point. In fact, and if we're talking specifically about the Zoom F6, I like the Zoom F6, and I'm afraid that people are going to take this the wrong way, but the F6 has this really, really cramped little front panel that's difficult to use. And so I really find that the Mix Pre 3 is easier to use with its layout, with its menu system, ergonomically. It just, for me, it's a lot easier to operate. And I think that's important when you're kind of trying to adjust things on the fly, especially as a solo operator. So I think that's a really important really important thing. So B&H, so thanks for that question. I hope that was helpful. B&H has RX Elements as a deal for $10. Holy, that's a good deal. I would, if any of you don't have RX Elements already, I'd get over there and buy it. That's amazing. There's some notes there. Thank you. Okay. Mix Pre 3 or F6. I would, unless Mix Pre 3 is my personal opinion, but they're both very similar in terms of their audio quality. Curtis, you have a content-rich and extremely educational channel. I get a wealth of knowledge from you. What are your thoughts on Super 35 versus full frame? Here's the thing. So I do mostly corporate and educational stuff on YouTube, obviously, my courses. So for me, Super 35 is probably the sweet spot, and Micro Four Thirds works really, really well for that as well. I like if I'm doing close-up product shots, I actually generally prefer to work with Micro Four Thirds size sensors because it's just so easy to get everything in focus like you normally need to. I do, don't get me wrong, I do appreciate the full frame, you know, being able to get a really like narrow slice of focus and get that kind of very stylized look, and that's cool. But for educational stuff, that doesn't work as well. That's for more if you want to, you know, if you want to get that kind of more artsy feel to it. So that's my thought. I think Super 35 is kind of a sweet spot for corporate. That works really well for me. So hopefully that makes sense there. Any info on the Deity S-Mic 2S? I saw some teaser pics on Instagram. It's coming soon is all I know. I talked to Andrew Jones from Deity not too much longer, so hang on there. What system do you recommend for recording environmental surround sound and wireless mic for people at the same time? Well, so a good quality mixer, probably MixPre 10T or the Zoom F8N would be the short answer. Those are my thoughts there. Can you do some tutorial on removing background noise, such as simple white noise or repetitive crickets or frogs in the background? I actually have done that over on the Curtis Judd audio channel. If you do a search there I'll try to dig up the link, but if you go there, we did some, just do a search for Isotope RX. So we did it with Isotope RX. Mike, sorry, I wasn't very clear. So it's not an XLR to 3.5 converter. You don't need any of that. You just need a 3.5 millimeter to 3.5 millimeter, but it's adapting the pinout configuration. So in yours, you have 3 colored rings on the little 3.5 millimeter plug, and you need one with 2 rings. So the 2 rings is TRS, the 3 rings is TRRS. So it's called the Rode SC 3 or 4. Just do a Google for Rode SC on B&H, and make sure you get the one that goes from TRRS to TRS. All right. From Jonathan Blair, what are your thoughts on the MixPre second edition with 32-bit float? We actually talked about that. My personal preference is for the MixPre. I haven't used the Series 2 yet, but my personal preference for operating it, like the ergonomics of operating it, just seems a lot easier to me on the MixPre. But again, you can make fantastic recordings on both of them. So, driver log, super chat 49. Thank you for the donation. I appreciate that. I can't plug an XLR mic into the H1, can I? Not directly, no. So again, I would think you'd want that 3.5 millimeter adapter. That's going to be the quickest, least expensive, and best way to get in on that. Breeze. Hi Curtis, keep up the great job. You are a real teacher, lecturer, entertainer, all in one package. We learn a lot from you. Thank you. I very much appreciate that. Okay, driver log. To clarify, $2,500 budget for all audio, not just the recorder. Okay, that's a fair question. Zoom F8N, Sennheiser Ambio, which is the Sennheiser microphone, and a Deity S-Mic 2. That's my quick answer. That way you can record dialogue, you can record ambisonics, and you've got a recorder that can handle all that. So that would be my quick answer there. Which lenses do you like to use for the Blackmagic camera for interview? I assume you use a speed booster too. I actually don't use a speed booster. I did have a speed booster, and I have a bunch of old Nikon glass that I could use with it, but in some cases it just felt like that was way too soft, and I actually ended up using a lot of native lenses. So I have the good old Panasonic 12-35 f2.8, and I have an Olympus 45mm f1.8. I really like the Olympus for that purpose. It's really, it's a nice lens. It doesn't have a ton of character in terms of, like using old full frame lenses with the speed booster, but it definitely gets the job done for those corporate videos. So that's what I end up using a whole lot. And thanks to Bangs, it is the Rode SC3. So that's the one you want to look for. for getting your microphone into your H1 and H6. Thanks for that, Bangs. Really appreciate that. All right. Derek, hey, Los Angeles. Welcome. I actually grew up around there. It's good to hear you, Derek, have you here, Derek, so thanks for that. Good morning from the Isle of Man. Welcome, Philip. So that actually, when I'm doing a 2-camera shoot, which actually is not that common, I almost always do 1-camera shoots, to be honest. But when I do a 2-camera shoot, I'll use the 12 to 35 on one, and I'll use the 45 millimeter f1.8, the Olympus, on the other. So usually the A cam is going to have the Olympus, and the B cam will have the Panasonic lens. So I'm probably not the most artistic camera shooter out there, so I don't know how much advice you want to take from me on that particular topic, but I'm kind of a little bit more of a pragmatist when it comes to those kind of things these days. Oh, here's a good idea for cameras. So thanks for that, David. RX100 and maybe the Mark II or 3. That's a good idea. So that's the Sony, by the way. Claudio, hi from Brazil. You've helped me a lot. Keep up being that generous person about your knowledge. You bet. Thanks for joining us here. Fame Little, thanks for your YouTube channel. One of the best. Yes, you answered my question about a lav being attached to the Rode transmitter as I wrote the question. Okay, good. We're all good there. Will the MixPre 3 version 2 have any advantages for people who generally use the basic settings? Not probably. So it depends on what you use. So if you're not using timecode, if you're not having problems with clipping because you're recording in pretty predictable environments, the main advantage it would have is the ability to record a backup to an USB drive. So that would be an advantage if you are worried about having a backup. That's one way you can do it, although you can also do that by recording to your computer at the same time with the one you have already. So those would be the main considerations from my point of view. So hopefully that helps there. And Mike, yes. In fact, go back to Bang's Naughty Bits. He has it's the SC3, I believe he said. So, wow. Good morning from Ghana. Thanks for that. All right. Amazing collaboration with Heimbach. Sad that it's necessary, but an interesting way to deal with trolls. I wasn't involved in that, but that good to hear. Thanks for that. Hi, Curtis from Poland. Thanks for joining us. Osmo Pocket is another good idea for cameras potentially. Curtis, have you heard of the Yongnuo 360 lights? What is your opinion on them? I have heard of them. I have not used them. Just so many lights, so little time is my only excuse. I'd be love to review them if I could ever get my hands on them. And the same with the Godox. 25% of the price of the Aperture with almost the same CRI. I need to probably get my hands on one of those. People keep telling me that. I think there are probably some sacrifices in build quality if I had to guess, but I don't know. Again, haven't used them. And I do have the Tascam DR100 Mark III is in my review queue. I just haven't had time to get to it. But yes, it is definitely there. Is there an adapter solution to have headphone monitoring while using whatever mic system as input? I don't know if that's in specific context to this system, the Saramonic, or something else. But you'd have to rely on your camera. And in fact, there is a fair bit of latency I have noticed with that. So if I'm playing back with my camera, this is a digital system, so there will be some latency. And so it's kind of difficult. Like that's why I'm not wearing headphones right now, because I was going crazy trying to listen to myself because there's that latency. Here's another one. Godox SL60W is similar to Aperture 120D. I forgot to be more specific. Yeah, I've got those on my list for sure. All right. DDS Mic 2 drops, S Mic 2S drops in 7 weeks per deity on Instagram. Can't find the post anymore. Okay. So yeah, coming up here pretty soon, before the end of the year, hopefully. Yes, the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K is on its way. I have ordered that. The S1H, that one's a little more iffy. I don't have the budget for that, but I'm not necessarily a camera reviewer, but I would be more likely to review the audio features on those cameras, just so you're aware. But I was pleased to see that the S1H does appear to have a wider audio input range, which I was very grateful for. I don't know if, Joseph, you and I talked about that at NAB last year. I don't know if you're still here, Joseph, but yes, you are. I don't know if what we talked about, if your feedback to them was what drove that, but in either way, that is a fantastic feature to see. I love the GH5 and I love the GH5S. I find it just a little bit frustrating on the audio end sometimes because some of these consumer level wireless mic systems have a really hot output signal. And so you're kind of basically operating very close to the top and it's clipping every once in a while. The S1H appears to have addressed that. So what accessories are you using on your live stream? I'm going to have to wrap this up here pretty quick. A couple things. So here I reviewed the D&O. One second. It's called the 180W. It's a panel LED light, so that's my main light here. I've got a little, just a poster board for a reflector right over here to try and fill in a little bit. This is a little on the dark side. And then back here, I have the, this is the Came TV. It's their lot of tube LED, and it's just creating this blue cast on the background. The reason I do this is it's super simple, has some color contrast. It makes it so I can produce content a little faster. So those are the main things. Now, the GH5S is the camera. In this case, the Saramonic is the microphone system going directly into the camera and then coming out of the camera via HDMI into an AJA U-tap. That converts the HDMI to USB. That goes to the computer. And then for the app, I'm using Ecamm Live on a Mac to live stream. So those are things I'm working with here. What type of mic do you recommend for recording guided meditations on a home studio with a Mix-Pre 3? I'm a huge fan. Eric, thank you. Guided meditations in a home studio, I would, well, it depends on your budget. Shure SM7B, I think, could be a good choice. Home studios are tricky because oftentimes they're not built for acoustics, and so having a dynamic microphone can help with that quite a bit. So the Shure SM7B would be a good option. If you cannot afford that, the Audio-Technica AT2005 is quite a good dynamic microphone as well to work with the Mix-Pre 3. Again, it'll have a nice warm feel to it, but will also help manage any sort of reverberation in your room by not picking as much of that up. So when you're doing a guided meditation, obviously the idea is you want people to focus on your voice, you want it to sound warm, kind of inviting usually. So those are some recommendations there, Eric. I hope that helps. Joseph, thanks, man. When you come visit, we'll figure out the noise and get your hands on an S1H. Yes. I got to find the time to make that happen. I used up a lot of my vacation time a couple weeks ago working on that course, so I'm in a little bit of a deficit right now. But Curtis, since it seems that like 32-bit float is going to be the standard soon, are there going to be any updates on Wave Agent? I believe it only works with 24-bit. Yes. I have heard from Paul Isaacs that Wave Agent only works for 24-bit. I will talk to him about that when we do that interview later this week. So hopefully we'll get some information there. Bad Karma. Hi, I just turned 46 on Saturday. Congratulations and happy birthday. And thanks for joining us today. What boom mic would you recommend in a room with a lot of echo? That depends, again, on your budget. The upcoming DDS mic, or not the S mic 2, the indoor supercardioid. I can't remember. I don't know that they've necessarily, maybe they have decided what they're going to call it, but I don't remember the name. That's one to watch. If you need one today, and you have a budget of about, I think it's $600 or it's $700, the Audio-Technica AT4053B is a fantastic microphone that in terms of its audio quality rivals microphones that cost twice as much as that. Now, I know that seems like a lot of money, and for some people that will be too much in terms of budget, but that's an option. And then if you also do a search on my YouTube channel for 5 boom microphones compared, you'll see a little shootout we did there that has some recommendations or some ideas that range from $100 up to about $700. So definitely some things to look at there. What is RX Elements? RX Elements is a series of audio plugins that do cleanup of audio amongst other things. And then Bang clarified, okay, the deal happens from time to time. RX Elements is not $10 today. Okay, so you just have to keep your eyes out for that. It may change from time to time. Darren Winder, big fan of your stuff, Photo Joseph, as am I. Thanks for the F4 series. I assume you mean the course. I just bought it and love it. So how do you deal with the battery power? I almost always use an external battery using the, I used to call it Hiroshi, but a person from Japan explained to me it's not pronounced Hiroshi, it's Hirose is how you say it. So it's a little 4-pin locking connector and an external battery. You can get the cables that adapt from the 4-pin Hirose to DTAP, so I can use a cinema battery, or I also have a battery distribution system. But probably the least expensive way to get into that is to use like a V-mount battery with a DTAP output and get that adapter cable. That's the way I generally will work with the F4 in terms of power. So that's a good question. When will you review the Tascam DR100 Mark III? Well, every time somebody asks, it bumps it up on the priority list, so it's been bumped up one more time. Curtis, will you do any episode about the Tascam? Well, there's another bump up. Tascam DR100 Mark III sounds like a very popular one. All right, a lot of chatter about other things, RX Elements, so on and so forth. I'm not going to stop on everyone. I got to get this wrapped up here. Are you planning to give audio workshops in Australia? I would love to do that. I love Australia. I've been to Sydney, I've been to Brisbane. I especially enjoyed Brisbane. Sydney was a lovely city as well. I would love to do that. I don't have any specific plans for that, but if you have the interest in helping arrange that, perhaps we should talk about that, because I would love to make another trip to Australia and talk audio for sure. What's your take on the new Nova from Zaxcom? How does it compare to the Nomad 1012 except for the form factor? I believe they've got the same internal. I think quality-wise, yeah, it's going to be very similar to the Nomad. Fewer channel counts. It's interesting that it has the little slots in the back. For those that are not familiar with it, this is a pro-level audio recorder mixer from Zaxcom. It's about $4,000 or $5,000. I can't remember. I think it's $5,000. I think it has 4 microphone inputs plus some additional line inputs. It has 2 slots in the back to insert wireless receivers. It looks like a fantastic system. I would love to try it. I haven't figured out how to get my hands on one of those. I can't quite afford it at the moment, but anyway, that's some thoughts there. Tom Filer just bought an Aperture 120T for $300 on B&H. That's a good deal. And a lot of people don't like working with tungsten lighting because they're always trying to match daylight, but man, I love working with tungsten colored LED lights. And generally, my measurements with the Saramonic C800 show that most LED lights in tungsten mode actually get a better color quality. So their SSI score is a lot higher, their CRI is generally higher, and their TLCI is higher. And for me, in many cases, the skin tones tend to look just a little bit better. So that is a good deal. Thanks for that. Perspective Caribbean, hello from Barbados. What are you shooting this with? This is with the Panasonic GH5S today. Aloha from Norway. And aloha to you too. And mahalo. Greetings from Florida, waiting for the hurricane. Take care down there, Sky Shutter. We'd like to make sure you stay safe down there. Excuse me, my allergies are getting to me here. 1 second. All right, yeah, for those that aren't aware, we have a big hurricane coming in to Florida here. Mike, thanks. I understand the solution to my problem. Get it on Tuesday. My first time here. I'm amazed at the quality of the production and your simple but understandable answer. Fantastic, Mike. Best wishes. Let us know if you run into any questions with that, and also let us know how it goes. All right. Do you have any thoughts or experience on the Luxley RGB lights? Thanks, as always, for being a great teacher. Those I have not used. David, that's a good question. If anyone else has, definitely take a look down here. What are your thoughts on the Blackmagic 4K versus the 6K, the pocket cameras? Well, I don't have a 6K yet. It's on its way still. But my thoughts, Kevin, are that the 6K has some quirks to it. That whole, like, I can only record to ProRes in 4K, only to RAW in 6K is a little bit weird, if I understand it correctly. So we'll have to see. And for me, I'm mostly probably going to be shooting, well, when I use that, that may become my A cam, and in that case, I may be shooting B-RAW, but that's going to kind of muck with the... Anyway, I have some experimenting to do yet, so I don't really know yet until I get my hands on it, but we're going to give that a try and see how it goes. Quick question about editing. Do you use Final Cut Pro, and also do you use an external SSD to edit? I do. I use Final Cut Pro 10. I have used Premiere in the past. I have used DaVinci Resolve as well. I do use an SSD. I can't, the cable's not long enough to reach. It's actually an OWC NVRAM SSD, based SSD. It's very fast. I think the throughput is something like 2,000 some, I don't remember the specs. But it's a USB-C Thunderbolt 3 SSD drive. That's my work drive where I do most of the stuff, and then I also have a RAID drive that's a little bit more storage oriented, although I do have things that I sometimes pull in off of there for the edit as well. But yes, OWC, and it's called, it has a silly name, OWC TB3 ENVP20. The Envoy Pro EX Thunderbolt 3 is what I'm using, so that's what it's called. So hopefully that's useful for you. Pradeep, thanks for the information on the Sound Devices MixPre 2 series. Now I'll buy the MixPre 10-2, but I'll also mourn my MixPre. Understood. Definitely understand where you're coming from on that. Gregall7, one of your original subscribers. I have learned a lot from your videos. Thank you. I don't know what original means, but if you've been around for a number of years, thanks for that. And then another 09 Ni 8SM ZPZTT. Thanks for the donation. Very much appreciate that. An answer there for Lottery Channel. Oh, hey, Rob. I am editing a video today where I followed your sound recording advice, and it sounded so sweet. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback, and I'm glad it's worked out for you. I apologize, people. I need to get going. I got to get to bed because tomorrow morning I'm meeting my daughter for breakfast. Thanks for joining us. Look for that video on the Saramonic Blink 500 a little bit later this week, and get out there and make some great sound in the meantime. We'll talk to you soon.